couple of seconds, couple of tens of seconds from the clip, so I'm just gonna start off about now. So, hello my dear friends, welcome to my channel, Europa Rediviva. I'm going to dedicate the first episode of my new English language vlog to the matter of why do we speak English in Europe. Of course, I'm not referring to why English, of course, English is just like any other language. We could ask ourselves why do we speak Albanian in Europe, but I'm talking about English as the prime means of communication. So even though England is a peripheric country to the continent, we here, for example, even in Romania, where I'm currently located, we use English as the so-called international language, the main language of communication with foreigners. And I wanted to philosophize a bit on this matter because it's not exactly evident. The answer is not immediately obvious why we have to use English. Some might say English is the main language, the main international language of communication. True, but there were others before that. There was French, for example. Up until the 1900s, French was the main, if you could call it an international language. French was the best candidate for it. So why English? And it just so happens that we've been conquered here in Europe, not only culturally speaking, but politically, economically, militarily. The fact that we have been cultural, the fact that we have been conquered culturally is an extension of the fact that we have been conquered politically and economically, because culture rather follows power, hard power. Soft power is an extension of hard power. So it just so happened that in the First World War, the western side of the continent was successful against the central part of the continent, and the eastern part of the continent, even though it fought alongside the western part of the continent, it just crumbled to pieces in an internal war. The Bolshevik Revolution and the civil war that followed. So therefore, it was the Anglo-Americans that kind of gained the upper hand after the First World War. And given that Germany was not able to turn the table on the situation after the Second World War, rather on the contrary, then during the second half of the 20th century, English became entrenched as the main medium of communication, the main language of communication of the West. Given that the world had turned bipolar, we had the capitalist West, led by the United States, and we had the communist East, led by the Soviet Union. And given that the Soviet Union crumbled and the whole communist bloc crumbled, we entered hegemony, we entered unipolarity, and this led to the hegemony of English. So this is why, even though I was born and raised at the in the final years of communism in Romania, so quite a long distance from the Atlantic, English was the main language that one would learn after 1990. Therefore, my generation grew up to be Anglophone, grew up to see the world through an English and mostly American lens. And this is why, if we have to address some message to the rest of humanity, we have to do it in English, at least in our part of the world, at least for the time being. And I titled my channel Europa Rediviva because it's Latin and it means may Europe rise again, may Europe live again. Europe as a European concept, not as an Atlanticist concept, because right now at least in the West, when they speak about Europe, they speak about the western part of Europe, and they speak about the part of Europe which is uh, connected at the hip to the United States. I would not say it is an ally of the United States because allies usually function as equals. It is rather a proxy of the United States. It has become an instrument of the United States because it lacks what psychologists would call agency. So, even though such an entity exists as the European Union, it is unable to make its own decisions regarding its own interests, and it just serves as a vassal of the transoceanic power, which is the United States, with its um, with, with its European intermediary, the United Kingdom, which is no longer part of the European Union, but still, even though the European Union has no countries which have English as a native language, okay, there are two countries in the EU, that's Malta and Ireland, which were conquered at some point of time by the English, by the British. However, they have their own national languages: Maltese, which is a form of Arabic, and Irish, which is Gaelic. It's something from the Celts. And yeah, English is not the main language, is not the native language of any group of the European Union. However, the main language of communication inside the European Union and the main official language, the language in which most of the Eurocrats hold their speeches in, is English. And I'm sorry to say, but this tells a lot about our place in the world and of the fact that we are losing our identity and we have become vassalized by the Anglo-Americans. This is, of course, very, very strongly felt in France, in Spain, among the, let's say, patriots, among the people who cherish their own sovereignty and who try to preserve their own culture. It is seen with much disdain in these places. Here in Eastern Europe, we have become accustomed to seeing it rather as a normal thing, um, because, of course, also our cultures were not that great to begin with. So we always sought outside influence. We always sought sources of inspiration for our own identity in the way we build it. Therefore, yeah, for us in Romania, for example, it might seem quite normal that English is the main language of communication. But if you come to think about it, it's really not. I mean, Europe, as a as an idea, as a concept, is something rather Mediterranean, is something rather Eastern, I would say, Eastern, Southern. It doesn't have much to do, historically speaking, with the Northwest, where it is now drawing its main identity from and where it is deriving its culture and so on. So, yeah, the title of my channel is rather nostalgic. I named it Europa Rediviva because I find it rather sad to have to speak in English in order to discuss European matters, because it's the only language that we can understand each other in, the language of the hegemon and the language of the empire and the language of the political entity under which we are currently, and from whose influence we should try to escape. But this is how things are, and yeah, this is what I wanted to tell you today. This was my first address. My following clip will be about the geopolitics of Europe as it exists, and the whole debate about subject versus object in international relations. Therefore, stay tuned, and if you like what I'm doing, you can share my channel to a friend, to somebody who's interested, who you think might enjoy these ideas. So thanks a lot, and see you next time. Bye.